right. We introduced this last Wednesday, kind of coming off the study on the arrows of Satan. I wanted something kind of on the flip side, about a little more positive in nature. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do here. And calling this, citizens of light. Of course, citizens of the kingdom of light in a dark world, but that's too long. So we just, citizens of light, but that's what it is. How do we live in this dark world? Remember, I asked you to rate the darkness that you would give on a 1 to 10. 1 the least, 10 the most. What's the darkness to you? What's the darkness in your life? And we talked about our numbers are going to be different for some. Some it might be a 3 in your world. Others it may be an 8. And so, that's going to affect each of us differently. And so we talked about that. And then we looked at a passage in Hebrews, particularly chapter 12, and we talked about, he says to look back. Look back at the people of faith in Hebrews chapter 11. They're our example. They're a great cloud of witness that surround us. And so we talked about that. And then we talked about looking up. Fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. And keep your eyes on Jesus. We're not called to produce the light. That's really important. We are not called to produce the light. We're called to reflect the light. Jesus is the what? The light. Just reflect Him. And so we look up to Jesus. Then we talked about looking forward. Remember the Hebrew writer talks about the suffering and the persecution they were going through, and he talks about there in verse 10, or he talks about discipline as we go through trials, and the purpose of those struggles is so that we will share in His holiness. There is nothing greater that we could think about than to share in the holiness of God, and that is a result of being like Him and becoming living in His light. And so that's kind of, we introduced it here. So I want to kind of look at another passage, and we're going to look at a couple of scriptures before we look at our main one. I like this idea of kingdom amnesia. We need to have kingdom amnesia, because we talked about there's 2 kingdoms of this world. You could be in the kingdom of darkness or Satan, right? Or the kingdom of what we are and want to be people to be a part of, the kingdom of light. That's it. There's only 2 kingdoms you can be a part of, live in. Kingdom of darkness, the kingdom of light. And often we forget what we're supposed to be. And so we got to remember a couple of scriptures that kind of introduce this before we look at our passage in 1 Peter. But look at Philippians 3:20. And somebody read that when you get Philippians 3:20. Who'd like to read Philippians 3:20? Okay, Roy?
For our citizenship is in heaven, from which we also eagerly wait for the Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ.
Our citizenship is in heaven. Well, let's think about that. Let's think about the word citizen. What does it mean to you to be a citizen? What concept? What privileges? What comes with that? When you think about the idea of citizen. What's that mean? Yeah, Dolores?
Protection by the law.
Okay, we've got protection. There have been Americans, and the irony of this has been there's been Americans who've criticized, and I'm not against criticizing our country. Don't take that to be the wrong way. We can have good discussions about things our country needs to do better. But there have been people in celebrity and news and other figures, sports, athletes, who have been critical of the country, and then they go to another country and they get arrested. And it is, the irony of that is they want to get back to this country as soon as they can. Because we've got rights. And among chief of those rights is protection. Right? You can't throw us in jail without just cause, without, yeah, you can't do that. Yeah, Roy?
As citizens of this country, we have the right to vote and say who's going to represent
Right.
us.
Yeah, yeah, we've got, what else think about anything about word citizen? What comes to mind? Anything, what it means?
You have a responsibility.
Okay, yeah, Matt, we've got a responsibility to live as citizens. There are laws. There's a part of being a part of a community, of a nation that we support and that we, yeah, Kathy?
As citizens of God's kingdom, I have a note out from the Philippians scripture, 2 Corinthians 4:18. We do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal.
Yeah, absolutely. Other things you think about, anything? Yeah, Jeff?
Well, it separates us
Okay.
from other people.
Yeah.
We went to Spain and we're Americans and you're different.
Right.
And, some people are really, I kind of had to deal with Christy. I'd be walking through. I'd say, I'm going to say hola to everybody. See what
Gonna say hola to everybody. Yeah, yeah, we're different, and it's a difference that the world recognizes because no other nation on the planet of the history of human beings on this planet have wanted to be in this country as much as they wanted to be in the United States over our history, and even to this very day, of course, we understand that. So, what other things? Think about anything coming? Yeah, Dolores.
Well, I didn't hear what he said, but another thing is we have freedoms.
Mhm.
We have freedom that
Yeah.
other countries don't have.
Yeah, we have lots of freedoms that so many countries don't have. Anything else to think about? Is it good? Let me think about this. You can have in our life, in this world, you ever known anyone that's had dual citizenship? Tony? Kayla does? Okay. Who else?
My two grandsons.
Two grandsons. Where at?
In England.
England? Australia, yeah. That's always an incredible thing. That's a special thing that you can think about. However, spiritually, what does Paul say here?
Our citizenship is in heaven.
Yeah. Our true citizenship is in heaven. Now, Paul is not anti-government. He's not Paul himself was a Roman, had adopted Roman citizenship, although he's a Jew. And so he will appeal to that. You remember when he's being mistreated in the book of Acts? He was beaten without cause, without a trial. And when they heard that, they stopped. Because a Roman citizen had rights. Among others, you could not do that to them. And so Paul appealed to that. He was not against, saying that I'm a Roman citizen. I have this national, connection. But the same writer, the same man is saying our real citizenship and ultimate loyalty is in one place. And that's in heaven. Yes, go ahead, Jeff.
But go back what you're saying about, I was thinking of another thing too about
Yeah.
being a citizen. It's kind of like what's going on right now in our country. Is not everybody is a citizen of heaven.
Right.
And there's a proper way to become
Yeah.
a citizen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, and again, we have to remember that where our citizenship is, and as Jeff was talking about when they were in Spain, tourists usually stick out a little bit. And I suspect, Jeff, you might have stuck out a little bit. I'm just saying. Now, Olivia, the rest of you guys were, but I'm sure your dad really stuck out.
Jeff sticks out everywhere.
Jeff sticks out in Manford, huh? What are some ways you might stick out as a tourist?
Well,
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I will do Tony and then come back to Dolores, yeah. Go ahead, Tony.
Ken Hartman's dad was in Japan, sitting in the train station
So ways that we would stand out as a tourist. Yeah, Dolores, you had and then Roy here.
When I went to Europe,
Uh-huh.
we were told not to wear red, white, and blue that indicated we were from the United States.
Right.
Because at the time there was some animosity
Right.
against
Yes.
America.
Yeah. So dress. Roy, do you have a?
The way we dress and the way we speak.
Okay,
are the
yeah.
words we use.
Yeah. What else? They think about.
When we have our camera
You look like you're lost all the time, somebody knows.
Look like you're lost all the time. Yeah. Ivana?
When you have your camera out.
Have your camera out? Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Robert.
Yeah, Jeff.
I got something real quick, funny. So when my dad's in the Navy, we lived in Spain for 3 years.
Uh-huh.
And we were all based, downtown Roga, Spain. And my mom, we speak poquito español, just a little. And my mom was in a little store trying to buy a Yadro, which was porcelain figurine. And this lady, she had this lady cornered, and she was giving every bit of Spanish she could think of. And I was standing there listening, and finally that lady said, "Listen, lady, I can't understand anything you're saying from America." Anyway, it was so funny. She was giving it to her.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at another scripture here. Let's kind of continue the thought here. Yes, I'm sorry, Jeff, or who? Tony.
About this, we talked about our speech
Right.
told us the way, gave us the way in Australia. They
Right.
say, where you from, Yank? And we tell them, but same thing as a citizen of heaven, our speech
Yeah.
should give us away.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Look at Colossians 1. We read this one last week, but it's kind of a key verse for the study. Someone read that again, Ivana, Colossians 1, 13 and 14.
For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins.
Okay, there it is. We've been rescued. What? Any other translations you have there? Delivered, translated, transferred. We've been taken out of one, and we've been what? We've been put in another. We've been taken out of what? Darkness. And we've been brought into the light. We are citizens of the kingdom of light. And but yet, why is that important to know at one time? You'll see that several times in the Bible, in Paul's writing especially. At one time you were this. Why is that important to remember where we've come from? And here he talks about that in this Colossians 1, says you were once.
Lord's Supper.
Do what?
Important when you take the
It's very important when you take the Lord's Supper. Yeah. Why is that important to remember what you once were, to remember where you came from? Humility?
Evidently,
Do what?
evidently people didn't like where they come from because they changed. So
Right.
they remind you, you don't need to go back there.
Yeah. It sets your focus, your priority, your agenda.
It strengthens us.
Strengthens us.
We may not be where we need to be, but thank goodness
Yeah.
we're not where we used to be.
We're not where we used to be. And we all have, I used to, look, I grew up in the church. I mean, we went to church every Sunday, right, Mom? Every Wednesday. My mom's mother was a faithful, and we got deep roots there. And so for a lot of us maybe that have similar, I sometimes would think, well, I don't have a real great salvation story, because I was brought up in the church, baptized at a young age. But, everyone outside of Christ, I don't care if you're 10, 12, 14 when you become a Christian, or you were, a middle-aged man or woman or whatever, how old, 80 years old, none of us were alive spiritually. We were all dead, Ephesians 2, what? In our trespasses and what? Sins. Jesus did not come to save people who were alive. He came to save what? People who were spiritually dead. And so we all have that, regardless of whether we have a great, a story. And now those stories are powerful, and we enjoy hearing those, and those can be encouraging. But we need to remember where we've been. And that also motivates us Specifically, we'll talk a little bit in this class, a little bit. We haven't really touched on it in these comments even. Just a little bit last week I closed on it. But it's to help other people what? Let's put our finger here. Let's remember Hebrews again. Remember how we closed on this last week? Hebrews chapter 12. It was real important. Verse 12 and 13. This is after he talks about the discipline we've received from the Lord. Remember, what are the Hebrew Christians going through? Trials, tribulations. What can God do with our struggles, our trials, our persecution? What can He do to us spiritually in our faith, our character? He could strengthen us. So it's not punishment. Don't think discipline is punishment. It's strengthening. And so he says, all of this is to help us, remember, so that we can, it's incredible. I'm telling you, verse 10. Share in His holiness. Wish we could just whole class on that, but whole quarter on that. But he says down in verse 12, therefore strengthen your feeble arms and knees. Here we go, verse 13. Make level paths for your feet so that the lame may not be disabled, but what? We've been healed. We've been brought out of darkness into light so that we can help others. And here when he talks about lame, he's not talking about physical. It's spiritual. We can help others come out of darkness and be saved. I had a preacher friend several years ago, and we would bounce ideas off each other. And we always teased each other. Now, we're only going to steal good stuff from each other. You can just keep the bad stuff in your sermons. But if you got something good, share it, and I'll share mine if you think. And he was telling about an idea he had one Sunday. He was going to lay his Bible up, and he was just going to say, I wish everyone in this room could go to hell for 1 minute and see how miserable it is. Now, I advise you not do that, but he did it anyway, and I think it was fine. He didn't get fired or anything, but
He didn't get a raise either.
he didn't get a raise. Well, I was like, actually, I think I kind of was like, oh yeah, tell me how that goes, and then I'll do it. But we were young and dumb, and I still am dumb, but I'm not young anymore. And so but his point was valid, so that you can be aware of what you've been saved from. And it's true. We used to live in such a way that we deserved what? Hell, death, spiritual separation. That's what hell is, okay? It's the place where God is not, the presence of God. Okay, don't get caught up in the fire and all that stuff. Those are metaphors. I don't want to get started on that. You got fire, you got light, you got darkness. It's a metaphor. It's separation. It's misery away from God. And by the way, people choose. God don't send anybody. I've said that before. God don't send anybody to hell. You know that.
He loves everyone. He
Yeah,
would do.
people choose. If you don't want to be in worship on Sunday, if you don't want to be around God's people, the church, you think you're going to want to be in heaven? No. They've chosen. Now, they may not know the ramifications, do they, of what they've chosen. But they know they've not chosen God. And so anyway, but nonetheless, I once was lost in sin, but what? Jesus took me in. And that dictates how we live. So we need to remember that we were used to be citizens of darkness. All right, we got to get to our verse now. Let's get over to 1 Peter 2 here. All right, we got to get into our verse, or we'll run out of time. Somebody, let's read 1 Peter 2. And we're going to read verses 4 through 10. Now, same context as Hebrews. These Christians are dispersed throughout the Roman Empire. And now by the mid-60s, what did we say early on? I think I said, I don't know when I said it. Last Wednesday, the classes start to run together sometimes. Early on, the Romans thought that Christians was just, and Judaism were the same. Now, the Romans didn't see any difference. But eventually they saw a difference, didn't they? And so now these Christians, by the time of the 60 AD decade, they're facing persecution. We've already saw that in the book of Hebrews, what they were going through. Same thing. They're going through trials. They're going through persecution. He tells them in the book, don't think something strange is happening to you, right? This is what you've been called to. So let's read, someone read, let's see here, let's get 4 through 7. Who's got that? Okay, Valora. And then somebody get 8 through 10. Who's got that? Okay, Marcia. Okay, verses 4 through 7, Valora, of 1 Peter 2.
To whom coming as unto a living stone, disallowed indeed of men, but chosen of God and precious. Ye also, as lively stones, are built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices, acceptable to God by Jesus Christ. Wherefore, also it is contained in the Scripture, Behold, I lay in Zion a chief cornerstone, elect, precious, and he that believeth on him shall not be confounded. Unto you therefore which believe, he is precious, but unto them which be disobedient, the stone which the builders disallowed, the same is made the head of the corner.
For them he is also a stone that makes people stumble, a rock that makes people fall. Isaiah 8:14. People stumble because they don't obey what God says. This is what God planned to happen to those people. But you are his chosen people, the king's priests. You are a holy nation, people who belong to God. He chose you to tell about the wonderful things he has done. He brought you out of the darkness of sin into his wonderful light. In the past, you were not a special people, but now you are God's people. Once you had not received mercy, but now God has given you his mercy.
Okay, there's a lot, especially in the first half that we read. Obviously, he's drawing from Old Testament, Isaiah, the Psalms, on some of these messianic passages that spoke about Jesus being the rock, the stone that the builders rejected, now becomes the chief cornerstone for the whole foundation. And so there's so much in that. But really, the focus is verses 9 and 10. I mean, this is such a rich theological, spiritual definition of who we are as the church, what we are to be. And I think it ties exactly into kingdom of light, that we need to have kingdom amnesia. We need to not forget where we're from, and also what kingdom we're a part of. And so notice what he says here, and these are several things here we'll just look at. He says that we're a spiritual house. Jesus is, of course, the chief cornerstone, and that we're built into a living house, obviously. Why is that important? What's the so what there? What is some things to think about a spiritual house? Why does Peter think that's important for us to know?
It shows how unimportant the physical things are that are happening to them.
Okay, yeah. What else? Think about anything, why that's that important, why the privilege of being a citizen of light, being into a spiritual house, why that important? What's involved in that spiritual house? What is that spiritual house?
The Lord says he will come and dwell within you.
Okay, yeah.
You have to think of God in the Old Testament. He dwelt in the Holy of Holies.
Yeah.
And so now the new covenant that God, Jesus says, if you love me, keep my commandments, and the Father and I will come and dwell within you. So that's spiritual life.
Yeah, we're going to get to that temple here. That's what Jeff is talking about. What is the house? Let's define it. Well, what is the spiritual house? It's the church, right? I mean, we are the spiritual house of God. We are the church. We are, and that absolutely begins in our heart through faith and obeying the gospel. And as a result, we become added to that family of God, the house of God, the temple, all these other descriptions. And so what does that say? What does that mean? What are some things that you think about that? Why is that something we need to remember? We're part of the church.
Holy.
Okay, holy, yeah, Jeff. What else? how does a house work? You builders, when you build a house, especially when you take the brick, do you set all the brick, like put one brick here, and then put a brick over here, and then over here? Is that how you build a house? And you give enough brick space so they don't get too close? What do you do with that brick?
Everything's joined together.
Okay, join together. Come on, some of you guys especially. What are some things you have to do?
Makes it stronger.
That's the foundation.
Foundation. What do you use? What do they call that to connect those bricks?
Mortar.
Order, right? You join them together, right? There was a elder in the church at Shawnee that did construction and was a construction manager and this company. And he talked about a few times that he would go visit a site or go out on an area, and sometimes it'd be after dark, it'd be early in the morning. And I know this will be a shock, but he would come up on people sometimes stealing things. I know that's a shock at a construction area site. I mean, I know that's, he said, they'd come steal the brick even that was laying there, right? But he said he never saw anybody with the chisel and an axe cutting out the bricks connected to the mortar, right, that they'd already put on the house. What were they always stealing?
The loose ones. The ones out by themselves.
Yeah. So what are we? A spiritual house. We're connected to each other. Wow, how important is that? What did we talk about last week? We kind of hit on that a little bit. We've got a cloud of witness around us. But what do we remember? Now, I'm not going to do that exercise again. Raise your hand if you've been a Christian for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Because some of you said, hey, that kind of was telling my age a little bit. But what did we say? We don't have to look to Abraham and Moses only as examples, the people of faith. In this church, we've got a cloud of what? We've got a cloud of witnesses that have been faithful to the Lord, and we're connected to each other. And so it's so important that we are a spiritual house. And so we look around, and it helps us. It helps us in this way. We are Jeff talked about the temple, so I'll kind of get it on it there. He says that we are this temple of God. We're this house. We know that was in the Old Testament, the dwelling place of God, the tabernacle, and later on in the temple. And remember what was hovering above the mercy seat? Remember, God would meet them where? That mercy seat, His presence, His holiness, right? Remember how that would work? God's glory. And of course, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, 1 Corinthians chapter 3, 1 Corinthians 3 speaks of the church as the Holy Spirit dwells in the church, right? But he also, 1 Corinthians 6, dwells in us as individuals. I am what? A house, a tabernacle, my body, in which the Holy Spirit dwells. And so it's a wonderful, beautiful thought. But he says we're a chosen people. That's another thing he says we remember. Did anybody ever not get chosen sometimes in school for stuff? Kevin? They didn't choose you for basketball, first one out of the gate? Huh? Never. Anybody else? Kenneth? They didn't get you first when they would line you up on the wall at gym and say, and you've seen this sometimes. I don't, hopefully it wasn't with Kenneth and Kevin, but literally the two captains would argue over it. Oh, you ever see that? You take him. I had one guy one time said he was so bad at sport they always played, and his sister would get picked over him, and it was just bad. It was just, she was good at basketball apparently, and he was always getting picked even over his sister. We all know what it's like not to get chosen. There's nothing worse than being last, something that nobody wants. Well, that's not the case with God, with us, right? He says what? I want you. Now, he didn't choose us because of how great we were, right? Now, out of his love for us, we were not good. And he says, I know you're not good. I'll take you anyway. And that ought to make us feel good. And so there is a sense in which that this citizenship is it's God's choice. I didn't become a citizen on my own doings. God made it happen. God chose me. Now we again choose to respond to that, what God has done for us in Jesus. But I think it's important to keep that in mind. And then he says quickly here, we're a priesthood. Now why is that important? What purpose did the priests serve in the Old Testament? What did they do? They did several things. Okay, they made offerings. They made sacrifices. They were to be a representative, weren't they, for God? The people were to look to the priest as what? Well, a mediator, but as an example, they should reflect the law. They should be an example. I mean, Jesus chose purposefully when he told the story of what? The Good Samaritan, that a priest and a Levite. The Levites were the assistant, they were like the assistant priest, and so they knew the law. They served in the temple. And yet they're not, what are they not reflecting? God specifically in that story, what? God's compassion, God's mercy. We'll talk about that in just a second. And so they also, somebody mentioned, I think Dolores, about intercession, right? Mediator. You think about Moses. What did Moses do for the people of Israel often in the wilderness? Yeah, what did God want to do sometimes? Wipe them out. And Moses said, what? Please, God, no. What will the nation say? Take me, he even says, remember? And blot my name out. He was, they would, I don't know if you've ever seen that with somebody, a teacher, with a student or a parent with a child, and you think, the only reason why they made it is because that teacher, intervened. That, that parent got them through, saved them, made intercession. And so God says that we are what does that give us? What else did the priests have a purpose, therefore? They were actually not to be, were they to live right there in the middle with everybody else and participate like everybody else and take the same?
They were set apart.
They were set apart.
In their own community.
Yeah. They had a purpose. They were set apart. They were distinct. We're here for a reason now. We've got meaning. We've got purpose. And I'll tell you guys, I'm hitting on this hard the next, it's more than just getting up and going to work and going to ball games. Is that all of our life now? It looks like it. We work, we play, we go to some events. Life has real purpose. And again, I'm not saying we can't honor God with our purposes and our jobs. I'm saying it's bigger than that. And we do those things with God in the middle of it all. And we do that on purpose as we live, as we work, as we go to ball games. Absolutely.
We were created to glorify God.
Created to glorify God. That's our purpose. Yes, that's our purpose. Not just to get up and eat and go to work and come home and sleep and just do it over again for 80, 85, 90 years, however long the Lord gives us to live. It's more than that. And so it's we also are a holy nation. That's kind of the idea, set apart. And a part of that, remember, part of that deal was God gave them a law. He entered into a covenant, right? And what was the basic agreement? God gives them the law and says what?
He'll be their God and they shall.
Your part is to do what?
Obey God.
Is to obey God. We just read, I think Valora read it, or Marcia, I can't remember which one read it, but you remember it talks about they stumble because, look at verse 8. Why are people lost? They stumble because they do not obey. And that's another word for believe as well. It's interchangeable often. Jesus will say, he'll use it interchangeable. Belief, obedience, they're one and the same. To believe in God is to obey God, and to not obey God is to not believe God. And so part of the agreement was if you're obedient, and then God said, I'll do what?
Bless you.
I'll bless you. And I'll protect you, and I'll provide for you, and all these things. And so this idea has to do with submit. We talked about our citizenship. As citizens, we should obey the law. We should be good citizens. We should, do those things that we should participate in where we can in society and contribute. And so that's the idea here. He says you're a holy nation. Now, here's what I wanted to end on. Yeah, we're going to have to do it quick. And it's we are a mercied, mercied people. Look what he says here. The purpose of this is to declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness. So he's kind of reiterating this, what we've said, into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. I love this. I love this. One of the biggest ways we can make an impact, I believe, in society is to live each day and extend mercy to people. It really is. You can call it grace. You can use love in there. I understand there's other words. We extend mercy. Now, I will tell you that one of the biggest ways to not be an influence and to hurt our influence and witness as a Christian is to not give what? And show mercy and love and kindness. Do people notice that real quick? Yeah. And they find out, you go to church? And you're talking, Tony said, our speech, you're talking like that? The best way. Now, why do we extend mercy? Again, what's he say?
Because God had mercy on us.
Yeah. We received it. I think it was Jeff mentioned, it gives us gratitude. Mercy is not getting what you deserve. Grace is getting what you don't deserve. Mercy is when you don't get what you deserve. And that's how we interact with people. I think that'll change our perspective, circumstances. I think Ivana mentioned humble. It'll humble us. I've heard people say things like this, how you doing today? Better than I deserve. And I know what they're saying. Did I deserve to wake up and have the gift of life today? I'm asking you, did you deserve it? What did you do before God to deserve the gift of life today that He gave you? What did you deserve to have the food and the house and the clothes and all the jobs? And what did we do to deserve it? Really nothing. Oh, I work, I do good, I'm morally good. Yeah, but we all are sinners. Our righteousness is filthy rags to God. And so how we treat people, how we interact with people, do I show mercy? Am I judgmental of others? Am I critical of others? Jesus said the judgment you use against others is what? It's going to be used against you. One of the scariest verses, but also it gives me hope because I'm now trying to live on this side of it more than I did maybe my first half of my life. James 2 and verse 12 says, speak and act as those who are going to be judged by the law that gives freedom. Because judgment with James 2:12, judgment in verse 13, judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. Judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. But then he ends it by saying, but mercy triumphs over judgment. Let's live our lives on the side of mercy triumphing over judgment. Again, doesn't mean we don't make stands. We don't live for the commands of God, and we don't have to apologize for our faithfulness to God's commandments. But we're a people who show mercy. And I think what's helped me over the years is sometimes it's not, how can I be merciful this week? It's, how can I be merciful this next hour to somebody? And maybe that's whoever that is for you. And then if I can show a little mercy this hour, maybe I can do a little more next hour, right? Just get through each day. And then when we get through the day, we get through the week. And when we get through the week, we get through the months. And we slowly become a people who live out of what? mercy. We extend mercy. I think one of the biggest things we could do is just cut people some slack. You know, I see Jesus doing a lot of that. When everybody wants to pounce and throw stones, Jesus is one is ready to extend mercy and give people a chance. And so I understand not everybody wants that chance and everything, but I think it's a big thing. You are a mercied people. And so he reminds us of who we are as citizens of the kingdom of light. And I think that'll help us. And so we're going to kind of launch from there, kind of keep building on this study about what it means to be citizens of light. So remember who we are and what we're here for. And this world is not my home. I'm just a passing through, right? My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond. So remember that, where our citizenship is in heaven. All right. That's it.
Jesus' name, oh God, we give our thanks to you. Oh God, we come to worship you. Oh God, we come to worship you. Light of the world, you step down into darkness.